But Chairman, it may not be that it is just that marijuana is illegal. It is a business decision that the company has made to preclude individuals who have a pattern or history or use of marijuana because it does impact productivity. And so regardless of whether it's illegal or not, a business would have the right to make a policy determination for themselves. And I would just add one other component to the colloquy, and that is that having here semi-recently been involved as an attorney on behalf of a client where an employee was discharged, that you also have issues as it relates to unemployment demands made by the former employee and the difficulty that you have as an employer in trying to meaningfully defend against a claim when you believe there has been a violation of company policy and that the discharge was a discharge for cause. And so I'd just add that to the mix for whatever value it is.
Thank you, Senator Davis.
Thank you, Senator.
Great. Thank you for your testimony. Now we have Jewel Mapes and then Tim Teeter.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Jewel Mapes. I'm a substance abuse prevention coordinator with the Meridian Police Department. I'm also a project coordinator for the Drug-Free Communities Grant under the Mayor's Anti-Drug Coalition. I'm here today on behalf of the Meridian Mayor's Anti-Drug Coalition. It is our intention to provide a letter of support to implement a resolution requesting the Idaho legislature to affirm by concurrent resolution its opposition to the legalization of marijuana in the state of Idaho. We are pleased to join AIC, Association of Idaho Cities, and Senator Chuck Winder in their efforts. The Meridian Mayor's Anti-Drug Coalition is a grassroots organization initiated by the executive order of Mayor Tammy DeVeard in January 2004 in her response to and concerns about the rising rates of drug abuse in the Treasure Valley. 8 years later, our mission has not wavered. Educating our youth, adults, and community about the risk, consequences, personal cost, and losses directly and indirectly is and has always been our vision. The Meridian Mayor's Anti-Drug Coalition is in full agreement with the Office of Drug Policy of Idaho. It's important, again, to know the facts regarding marijuana. Marijuana is classified as a Schedule I controlled substance under both state and federal law. The THC content of marijuana has risen dramatically in the last 30 years, contributing to the fact that 1 out of 6 teenagers who start smoking marijuana will become addicted to it. Marijuana is a significant threat to public safety, according to the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. Marijuana is the most frequent, prevalent, illegal drug detected in impaired drivers, fatally injured drivers, and motor vehicle crash victims. We appreciate your thoughtful consideration of this matter. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Tim Teeter and then Nick Chafin.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Tim Teeter. I have an extensive background in healthcare, a paramedic, respiratory therapist, and I was the air quality toxicologist for the state of Idaho for a number of years. Henry David Thoreau said, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." Sometimes what we see is not really what is there at all, and sometimes we only see what is close to us and what our limited personal experience and attitudes allow us to see, and we become blind to the greater reality. So what we are talking about is perception. It is said that perception is reality, but our perception, that is our ability to recognize, identify, and understand by means of our senses, is perforce limited by our experience, our beliefs, our ideas about right and wrong, and our knowledge. For many thousands of years, human perception of cannabis is what it's called. Marijuana is simply a slang term out of Mexico. The perception of cannabis was sacramental, religious, and spiritual as a medicine and a mild intoxicant. These perceptions persisted for many until 1937 when Marijuana Stamp Tax Act was passed, ushering in the reefer madness prohibition era. It should be stressed that there were numerous causes for this legislation and rebranding, if you will, of cannabis as a devil weed, but none had any basis in science, medicine, or antisocial behaviors. In 1937, the AMA testified against the prohibition, noting its medical utility and general benign effects on its users, a finding science continues to affirm. Today, in 2013, many of us still have the reefer madness mindset and perception of cannabis as the devil weed. This is one instance where perception is not reality. Probably more than anything, for many people, cannabis is a symbol. For some, it's a symbol of sloth and indolence, the slacker stoner stereotype that keeps people from industry. For some, it's a symbol of the counterculture of the 60s and 70s that brought rebellion, nonconformity, social and sexual upheaval. For some, it's a symbol of degradation, addiction, and the destruction of conservative family values. The reality is cannabis users are cancer, ALS, and MS patients, college students, disabled veterans, professionals, working people, and your friends and neighbors. In short, thousands of Idahoans for whom cannabis is an important medical modality, who use it responsibly, occasionally in the social context, and who cannot understand being endangered by punitive laws against a safer, healthier alternative to alcohol, tobacco, and some prescription drugs. And in conclusion, I'd ask you to look beyond stereotypes, half-truths, innuendos, and misinformation, principally espoused by those with a financial interest in continued prohibition, and see the truth about cannabis, the truth that does not justify SCR 112 or SMJ 101. And I would also like to mention that I submitted testimony that will refute and address a lot of the outrageous claims that you've heard here today. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And I would note that anyone who submitted written testimony, that does get made part of the record, and it's kept with the minutes. So thank you very much. We have Nick Chafin and then Matt Wilcox.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. My name is Nick Chafin, a 60-year-old young man from Idaho Falls, Idaho, who cannot vote. I'm here representing the Bonneville Youth Development Council. And we are not okay with what is happening. Celebrities, they're promoting the use of marijuana more and more. Michael Phelps, a personal favorite of mine, got caught smoking weed at a party with some friends, and he's the greatest Olympian of all time, most winningest man on the planet. He's promoting to me and other young adults that it's okay to smoke weed because you'll end up winning like him. We are getting mixed messages as teenagers. We don't understand if it's good or bad, and if we're probably going to follow our friends' influence, because if our parents say no, who are we to believe? I've been very open-minded on the subject of marijuana. If you asked me 2 years ago, I would have said, I wouldn't care, it's just a plant. But I've educated myself, and I say no, it shouldn't be legalized. If our ancestors were to look back into a crystal ball into our future after seeing the effects of tobacco and alcohol on our country, do you think they would want marijuana legalized? I am asking, I'm begging, and I'm pleading you on all four hands and knees to find another way, because marijuana is not the answer. It wouldn't be the answer to anything. There's other medicines out there. On one last note, it's our future, it's our kids' future, and it's our grandkids' future. How do you want it to look? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there questions from the committee? Senator Fulcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Was it Matt? Is that your name?
Nick.
Mick?
Nick.
Okay. Mick, I don't know. I see some common shirts out there, and so I don't know how many from your group we're going to be able to hear today. But oftentimes, we don't get a lot of testimony from your generation. And I, for one, want to thank you for taking the time and coming to speak to us and invite you to share your perspective, not just on this, but on any other topic that we have before us. So thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we've got Matt Wilcox, and then Dale Oloa, OHLAU. So, Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is Matt Wilcox. I am a certified massage therapist from Carrington College, an accredited college and an accelerated course, and I graduated in the top 5% of my class. I pretty much am representing myself, a massage therapist, and the fact that I have an immense knowledge of the human body and what ails and what aids it. I am against 112. For the most part, my speech is going to be representing common sense. And it has been brought up that it is a gateway drug. Marijuana is a gateway drug. I consider that mostly a theory that is not fact. Because you smoke marijuana does not mean you will do cocaine, does not mean you will do meth. Just because you wear shoes does not mean you will wear Nike. In today's zeitgeist, in my era, I am proud to actually be a part of the fact that we are accomplishing what our parents have been failing to do, and that we have been able to point out a plethora of humanity benefiting traits to the plant marijuana and hemp, which is practically the same thing. You can build an entire car out of marijuana. You can even run the car off of the oil that it can create. You can build clothing. Every single piece of your clothing you're wearing now, other than the metals, you can build out of hemp and marijuana. You can build houses, apartment complexes, and then not to mention all the major medical benefits, which earlier had been brought up that it was only used against cancer. There are hundreds of different body ailments that it can actually help and benefit. I find it actually ridiculous that we're even here today at all, when the fact that millions of people are starting to stand out and agree nationwide that this is actually, it should be legalized, decriminalized recreationally and both medically as well. And whether or not you would like to admit it, I'm sure that seeing a lot of us wearing our hippie shirts and everything, you may think that a lot of us are hippie potheads just arguing against it because it's our favorite drug, as it may be called. But lawyers, police officers, judges, congressmen, doctors, respected actors nationwide are now speaking out in for marijuana and its legalization. The fact that there are hundreds of beneficial reasons to its existence and how it could benefit humanity as a whole, and the fact that all of those research studies are being ignored and it's being focused on the one small bad thing about it, and the fact that it can be used as a drug. So can smelling markers, so can sniffing glue, and so can many other things. Those, I think it should also be removed as a drug, period, just because it has one side effect that can be done. Ultimately, everything boils down to choice. As I applaud that the younger generation than mine are here, however, it all literally boils down to choice. One of the things that was mentioned earlier is 800 marijuana joints would kill you. What was failed to be mentioned is that you have to smoke all 800 marijuana joints in 15 minutes, which is physically impossible. You wouldn't die from the marijuana. You would die from the constant inhalation and lack of oxygen. The other thing is that if reefer madness was brought about in today's society with how intelligent we have become as we advance in our human intellect and everything else, if reefer madness and all the other propaganda was brought up from the early 1900s in today's time, there's no way marijuana would be made illegal. It was made illegal in the first place by a lesser intellectually advanced version
Mr.
of
Wilcox,
ourselves.
could you wrap up, please?
Okay, yes. Another thing, I guess, in conclusion, is the argument strength, as it was just brought up, perspective. For the most part, I'd almost guarantee almost none of you have ever experienced it. You're all used to statistics and just reading what's put on the paper. Many of the people and the millions across America that are against it remaining illegal have experience and some type of positive knowledge that you guys may not be aware of. It's not nearly as harmful as it's being thrown out to be.
Thank you. Senator Lodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ben, I'm going to ask you the hard question.
Okay.
Have you used marijuana?
Yes, I have.
Have you encouraged others to use marijuana?
I encourage them to make their decision with facts on their personal choice, as in don't just go out and do it. Not everybody should do it. everybody should at least experiment with the lower level potency. A lot of people do it incorrectly, and they do it too intensely. It's like taking their first shot of alcohol with 151 rather than starting off small.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator
one more.
Lodge.
Do you have as much knowledge in your training in physical therapy, is that what you said?
Yes.
As Dr. McCluskey, who's a well-noted surgeon?
No,
Do you
I
have
do
as
not.
much experience?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions?